67.95.
Okay, let's get a check on the markets. Rick Santelli joining us from the CME in Chicago. We've got the professor, Steve Leisman, on the set. And from Newport Beach, PIMCO's Neel Kashkari. You're always in the right place, managing director and head of global equities. I'm going to go to you, Mr. Kashkari, first. Given what we're seeing out of Spain, this idea that the 5 years now, crisscrossing with the 10-year, how anxious are you right now?
Well, we're very concerned about what's happening in Spain. I mean, clearly they are financing at unsustainable levels. Their economic model is broken right now. They absolutely need a lot of help from the ECB, from the IMF. And we're all waiting. We're all waiting to see what policymakers are going to do. So when we think about equity investing today, these big left tail risks are out there, whether it's Europe and Spain or it's the fiscal cliff at home. The right tail, the positive thing that we're waiting for, of course, is actions from policymakers, whether it's the ECB dealing with Spain or it's the Fed coming out with QE3. Either of those would be very good for risk prices and for equities in general.
Okay, but just real quick, how are you handicapping all that? We know what should happen. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think what is going to happen is that policymakers in Europe will continue to use duct tape and Band-Aids to buy time and to avoid making hard choices. They've done it now for two and a half years. I think they're going to continue to try to do that. The challenge is each of their half measures is becoming less and less effective, and their ability to buy time is slowly eroding. And so we're watching
I think you're
very
wrong,
close.
Neil. I don't think they're using duct tape. Rick will tell you, duct tape works. It's all Band-Aids. I just want to make that point.
And the duct tape franchise goes all the way to the Fed because they're not doing anything that's more or less duct tape than Europe. I mean, we talk about Europe like, wow, they're not doing a good job. None of this is working. They're not doing much different than Ben Bernanke. You know, matter of fact, their end game is to be maybe more like him and have more quantitative easing. And I have one point to raise with Mr. Kashkari, and that is 7.5%. There were many years in the U.S. we funded our long end at that or higher rates. So really, it isn't the 7.5% that's the problem. The problem is insolvency, is it not?
Well, you're absolutely right, but I think the two go hand in hand. It's economic growth, and it's the base of how much debt they have and whether or not they can afford to finance their debt and service their debt at these levels. And right now, they clearly cannot do that.
Do you think that's a question we'll be asking ourselves in a few years, sir?
It's a very real question. You know, we absolutely need to tackle our long-term fiscal challenges.
Then why doesn't anybody talk about how many commercials for either party or the current administration do they do anything but sweep that possibility that the difference between the U.S. and Europe, the joke on this floor is, oh, about 6 years. That's the punchline.
Well, again, look, I agree with you. We absolutely need to tackle these challenges. I think Simpson-Bowles was a good...
Then why do you keep saying that the Federal Reserve needs to do these programs? You're a very smart man. Do you really think that's the solution we need?
Well, we don't actually think that QE3 is going to lead to long-term sustainable economic growth.
Then it's a dumb idea, right? Fourth time around?
It's not a dumb idea. What we think is that the legislative branch and the executive branch need to come together and make long-term fiscal adjustments.
Why?
But if they're unwilling to do
those
that,
conservatives saying no, because they're saying no to more debt, which you just said a minute ago was the problem in Europe.
But, Rick, you wanted to keep having no resolution in Washington and wind up where you've got companies like UPS blaming Washington today for this?
I don't want to compromise so the 5 o'clock news could say, wow, boy, kumbaya, both sides work together.
But the idea of a compromise, I mean, if you could have something like what happened back in 1986, where you had Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill coming to some sort of a compromise so that you did see real tax reform.
Did they ever stop spending in that deal? History says that Ronald Reagan got the short end of the deal.
So you want to see nothing happen and just go over the fiscal cliff and don't worry about it?
No, I want to see real spending cut. You know, here's what we currently do.
Rick,
let's spend more now
you're going to go off the fiscal cliff. You're going to talk about you'll get those cuts.
Oh, come on. We're already down the fiscal cliff. We're already down the fiscal cliff.
Rick, you think that if we go over the fiscal cliff, that's all right?
What are you worried about in the fiscal cliff? Tax policy? Come on, Andrew. Of course they're going to work it out.
Rick, why didn't
hold on. But you're suggesting you don't want them to work it out? I'm unclear on what's going on here.
I don't want to have spending cuts that have a trigger that isn't right now.
Right.
Ronald Reagan fell for it. Oh, we'll spend today and cut later. Never has worked. That promise has never been delivered.
Okay.
We need pro-growth policies and spending cuts right now. The taxes, why would you give any of these people more tax money?
Spending cuts aren't...
We live in a society where they're banning people paying anything back. Oh, students don't need to pay back. Mortgage holders don't have to pay back. I don't want to pay, and neither do many people down here. We've said it before. And who's the government to say that I have to share a sacrifice for people that signed a dotted line and now regret it? Or parents, you know, some of us parents save for our kids. So the ones who took out loans get forgiven.
Rick, I'm on the same side of the page with you for that, in terms of saving, in terms of being cautious, in terms of not violating those things, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to see our fiscal deficits taken care of.
I don't think that anything we're talking about to be done in this administration does anything in regard to take care of it. You keep talking about Band-Aids and duct tape in Europe. It's the same here.
What about Simpson-Bowles?
Why isn't anybody more honest?
What do you think about the Simpson-Bowles proposal? I mean, that does take some serious steps. It would have been good at the time. Another example of the government leading by horrible example. They had a chance to play that hand of cards. You can't go back now, whether it's on a student loan, a mortgage, or Bowles. It's coming back. Simpson-Bowles is coming back, but it also talks about $3 of spending cuts for $1 of revenue increases. And from what you've said, you would not sign for it.
You know what? We had our Treasury Secretary on.
Revenue raises.
We had our Treasury Secretary on. He goes, we can't afford the tax cut for the people in business, which we call the upper percentile, because it'll cost, what was it, $1 trillion over 10 years, right? We're spending more than $1 trillion every single year right now.
Yes, but Rick, Simpson-Bowles talks about $3 of spending cuts for $1 of revenue increases, which is a tax rate.
I don't believe that this Congress can deliver on it, even if they signed it. Don't believe it, and neither do most Americans.
Let's bring Steve into the conversation. Steve, you had 2 points.
Done.
You had 2 points you wanted to make?
Yeah, I did. First, on what Rick is saying, it is interesting that the market doesn't seem to share the concern right now about the deficits. That's what's clear.
Look at the 10-year.
It's one.
Because rates
whatever.
are low,
I just refinanced the mortgage.
That's a lie. That's an outright lie, saying these low interest rates mean
Rick, I'll give you a chance to take that word back, Rick. I'll give you a chance to take that word back. I'm not lying.
I didn't say Steve was lying. I said that comment is a lie. Quit being so sensitive.
I'm not sensitive. I'm not crying.
I don't understand the lie.
Somebody is, and it isn't me.
I think what he was trying to say is that because the Fed is involved in the market. What's interesting, Rick, is to think about
low rates.
Where the market would set the rate in the absence of the Fed being involved. It strikes me that you could make an argument that the Fed withdrawing from the market would cause rates to decline, in part because the market anticipates and help from the Federal Reserve. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is what's happening right now with the euro. I don't think we're giving that enough thought right now.